Hi, my name is Lashonda, and I'm doing my final project on Arturo Alfonso Schonburg, who later changed his name to Arthur Alfonso Schonburg. He was born January 24th, 1874, and died June 8th, 1938. Arthur Alfonso Schonburg was a Black historian and cultural critical figure of the Harlem Renaissance, and a Black liberation activist and writer who shone the legacy of people of African descent. Arthur Alfonso Schonburg was a distinguished Black bibliophile and self-trained historian who spent many of his life collecting and preserving rare Africana books, pamphlets, personal journals, and other important artifacts related to people of Africa. Mr. Schonburg was born in Puerto Rico, then migrated to New York when he was about 17 in 1891. Mr. Schonburg comes from a mother who is Maria Josefa Schonburg, who is African American and is originally from the Danish Virgin Islands, which is now called the U.S. Virgin Islands, and a father, Carlos Federico Schonburg, who is a Puerto Rican of German ancestry. He came to the U.S. to prove his fifth grade teacher wrong, who claimed that Blacks had no history, heroes, or accomplishments. So he dedicated his life to highlighting the achievements of the African diaspora. Mr. Schonburg founded the Las Dos Antillas, which is a cultural and political group that worked for the island's independence. And after the collapse of the Cuban revolutionary struggle, Schonburg turned his attention to the African American community. He dedicated his life to convincing people of African descent of the true historical contribution to humanity in world history, and that humanity and self-worth were not determined by white people. During Arthur's visits to the South, he was exposed to the conditions that Black people face, including lynchings, race riots, and the disenfranchisement of Black voters. In 1911, he turned a Cuban and Puerto Rican lodge into a Prince Hall Lodge, renaming it in honor of Black Freemasons, and founded the Negro Society for Historical Research. In 1922, he was elected president of the American Legal Academy, which is the foremost organization dedicated to research in history and Black history. Schonburg also had friendships with some of the greatest Black minds of the day, such as W.E.B. Du Bois, Alain Locke, and James Weldon Johnson, who encouraged him to compile a seminal bibliography of Black poets known as the 1915 Bibliographical Checklist of American Negro Poetry. Having the 10,000 items he collected of the African diaspora, it would become accessible to the writers of the Harlem Renaissance. This came at a time when millions of Black people from the South, the Caribbean, and Africa movement to the Harlem, which is called the Black Capital of America. In 1926, the Harlem branch of the New York Public Library. He was a historic figure in the 1920s and 1930s in the Harlem, collaborating with W.E.B. Du Bois, Alain Locke, and Charles S. Johnson, and serving as a mentor for the Langston Hughes, Claude McKay, and the other young writers of the Harlem Renaissance. While in New York, Schonburg made his way into a small Puerto Rican enclave in the Cuban community of nationalist intellectuals. In his late teens and early 20s, he helped found a revolutionary nationalist club named for Cuba and Puerto Rico, Las Dos Antillas. I am now going to have one of my friends ask me a couple of questions about Arthur Alfonso Schonburg. She doesn't want to be in the video.
Oh my God. Did he settle down when he went to New York?
Um, yes, he had three wives, but at different times. His first wife was named Elizabeth Hatcher, and she is from Virginia. And they had three children together. And then in 1902, he married his second wife, Elizabeth Merrill Taylor from Virginia. He married his his third and last marriage. It says, um, is to Elizabeth Green, and they had three children together. He got busy. Are you listening?
No, just say.
Don't use this in the thing.
Did he work while living in the U.S.?
Yes. So when he arrived in New York, some years later, he served as a secretary in the Las Dos Antillas, which is the political and cultural group, which worked for like the islands' independence and stuff. And then he was also a messenger and clerk in the law firm of Prior, Mellis and Harris. Between those, or furthermore, like he writes, he had his he wrote a pamphlet. He wrote his first article or known article was in 1904. And it's called "Is Haiti Decadent?" It's in the Unique Advertiser. He was employed by the Bankers Trust Company and eventually became the supervisor of the Caribbean and Latin American mail section. And then he again served as the secretary of the Negro Society for Historical Research. He got elected Grand Secretary of the Grand Lodge. He also got elected president of the American Negro Academy. He served as a curator, which is whoa. So he served as a curator, which is a manager or overseer. So he was a manager basically at or of the Negro collection of the Library of Fisk University in Tennessee. Lastly, he also was like the manager of Schonburg collection of Negro literature and art. And when he died, he was serving as a manager of the collection he envisioned and spent his life creating on.
Were there any negative encounters he faced when trying to complete his goal?
Yes, one of the encounters Schonberg faced was that W.E.B. Du Bois tried to stop his appointment of getting, I believe it was getting a job in at the New York Public Library, NYPL, um, because one of the reasons was he did not have a college degree, and that when he was collecting all the Africana books, the pamphlets, personal journals, and other artifacts that related to the African descent, W. Du Bois did not believe that Schonberg was qualified to be a curator at the NYPL. They felt, other than Du Bois, other African American academicians, other African Americans felt that he wasn't qualified for a job without a college degree. Like now, you probably have to have a college degree, but like since Scoper didn't, but he knew enough to like if he knew enough to have an offer at the New York Public Library as a curator, then I believe he would qualify as it, even though he did not have a college degree. If they think so, then I believe that W. E. Du Bois and other African Americans should have an opinion if he should get appointed the job or not.
How do you think his life was throughout his mission to prove African American heroes' history and accomplishments?
I think it was his hard his life was pretty hard just because from what I read of the articles that I believe is W.E.B. Du Bois. He wanted to bring down Schonburg just because he didn't have he W.E.B. Du Bois didn't think Schonburg had the intelligence to do what he's doing or to do what he did. I believe that set him back kind of or a little bit discouraged him, but he kept on going.